sometimes we just need a soft place to fall. Today, we're looking at understanding the long recovery process from grief.
Hi, I'm so glad you could join me today. My name is Natalie Wood and I own and operate a private practice called Cogni Academy Counselling and Supervision. I'm so pleased that you could join us for my grief and loss series today, where I'll be sharing with you about understanding the long recovery process from grief. Hi everyone, I'd like to invite you to grab your cup of coffee, your hot tea or another cold drink depending on where you live in the world before we get going. So pause the video now and then we can spend some time together. Grief can be a long recovery process and it isn't easy to handle. If you're handling or dealing with grief, it's important to allow the process to take its time. Grief can't be avoided or eliminated quickly. However, there are some processes and activities that you can use to help you feel some relief as you heal. So let's try these strategies to help you understand your grief and recover. The first thing is understanding grief. Grief refers to the way you handle a loss. The loss can range from a loved one to a pet. Grief can also occur over the loss of health, employment, and other life events. Grief doesn't fit one cookie-cutter definition. It can vary greatly from one person to the next, and even change during one person's lifetime. The way you handle loss can differ at various stages of your life. It's important to remember that grief can include anger, resentment, sadness, guilt, and other intense feelings. Number 2, changing thoughts. One of the common themes of grief is changing thoughts. This can occur rapidly and take you from feeling fine to feeling absolutely devastated, all within a few minutes. Your thoughts about your loss will also vary through shock, sadness, guilt, anger, and acceptance as you go through the grieving process. Number 3, concerns of loved ones. The grief process can be different in each person, so the way you handle it may not be the same as your friends or family. Your loved ones may be concerned about your grieving process. They may feel that your process is either too short or too long. They may feel that you're hiding your emotions or sharing them too much. Either way, be true to you. Your friends and family need to understand that the grief process doesn't have a set expiration date. You are not required to stop grieving at a particular point in time. So a gentle reminder to them that your process may take longer or shorter than what others perceive as normal, that's going to be okay. And also let them know of anything they can do to help you, such as preparing meals, helping with the house or errands, and taking the kids off your hands for a while. Or anything else that you can think of that would bring you some sort of relief. Number 4, using distractions. It's common to use distractions to deal with grief. Distractions can help you temporarily forget the pain. They can also make you avoid dealing with the emotional impact of your loss. So, very important. It's important to use distractions in moderation and be patient with your feelings. That's super important. Focusing on work or hobbies, watching a funny movie or reading a great novel can help you keep your mind occupied temporarily, and that's okay. 5. Preoccupation with the loss. So the nature of your loss can preoccupy you and make you focus solely on the grief. A point to remember is part of the recovery process is understanding that long-term preoccupation with the loss is not healthy. This differs from short-term preoccupation, which will happen for a while. As time goes on, if you continue to feel this preoccupation, seeking outside help from a counsellor like me may help you. Number 6, support groups and therapy. Grief counsellors, that's me, can help guide you through your grief and find ways to help you deal with your loss. You may also benefit from support groups, and these are groups of people that gather together or therapy sessions that are one-to-one. Also, there are forums and Facebook groups filled with others who are also experiencing grief. These can be quite helpful in the ways of just sorting through your thoughts and sharing ideas that may either help you or who they may have helped the others. So 7, accepting the recovery process. If you accept that the recovery process will take time and effort, then it will be easier to handle it. Accept your feelings and focus on rebuilding your life after the loss. To wrap it all up, the grief process can take a significant amount of time. You don't have to pretend that it's easy to fix, and the stages of the grief process can be overwhelming at times, but your journey to recovery can be eased by seeking help from others like me and finding ways that allow you to move forward past the devastating effects. So today's bonus is grief and loss as a fact sheet. I thought this would be really helpful to you in this beginning phase. So what happens is grief is the emotional reaction experienced after a loss, and I just wanted to talk you through what that looks like. Someone called Elizabeth Kubler-Ross came up with this curve, and it's been featured in movies. One of my favorites is Inside Out. It's a kids animated movie, but it really highlights these 5 major areas of grief and loss. So if you're interested, that'd be a good place to begin if you have kids that are grieving, or you yourself just want it really simplified. And yeah, it's a beautiful movie, so I encourage you to maybe watch that and reflect on that and see what that's like for yourself. And your thoughts would be super valuable if you wanted to share them with me. You can find me on Instagram and just message me there. It's at Aussie Counselling. Moving on from that, so the 5 stages look like something like this, and what I want to show you is the stages of grief. This is a detailed curve, but you could follow along with me as I explain to you just the 5 big stages. So Elizabeth Kubler-Ross came up with this as the 5 stages. So the first stage, and these stages we'll find out subsequently are not linear, so that's something to keep in mind. But Kubler-Ross said that the first stage is denial, and this is what I mean by this is it is shock, numbness, and the unreality of the situation, or kind of like fantasizing reality. The second stage can be anger, and that is where you're angry at God or the doctors or the employer or the system. So the anger can, as you can see, can be directed towards different things, people, or places, just depending on how that sits with you. Bargaining. So this is seeking ways to alter the reality, and an example of this would be making deals with God and possibly promising to change so that you could have that person back in your life. This is particularly true for people that may have experienced divorce. So bargaining is definitely part of the stages that are major. And the fourth stage could be depression. So this is where depression of mourning and sadness. Depression. So the fifth stage is depression, and this is where we are expressing the mourning sadness. So it's deep grief. It's a deep sense of loss, and it causes us to feel really, really sad. And then the fifth stage is acceptance. And what I mean by this is adapting to the loss and figuring out how to go forward. This is a crucial place that people think that when they get to that it stops there. However, the nature of grief and loss is it can take years for someone to navigate through the stages of grief. And if I can just explain it to you a bit better, and it looks a lot clearer when I show you this image, this is what grief really looks like. So people with chronic illness and those separated from family members, people who have lost their jobs or homes and other things also experience these stages of grief. It may not be as intense, or it may, probably that's the wrong phrasing, but it may not have the same impact as the loss of a significant person by way of death, where they're no longer here. But it doesn't detract from the fact that people will go through these stages of grief, and it's real for them and true for them. So each year around the time of the loss, you may experience a recurrence of the grief, and this is called anniversaries. The same is true for holidays, birthdays, and other kind of anniversaries where that significant person, their absence causes that grief to overwhelm you again and resurface. And that is why you'll see that this image looks like a mess, and it is not linear. It is not a nice gentle curve as we would hope it to be, because I think as human beings we really struggle with change, and we really struggle with the pain of growing, and grief is definitely a place where you grow. So Kubler-Ross is quoted as saying, "The reality is that you will grieve forever. You will not get over the loss of a loved one. You will learn to live with it, but you will heal and you will rebuild yourself around the loss that you've suffered. You will be whole again, but will never be the same. Nor should you be the same, nor would you want to." I think that's a beautiful quote, and one that I want to leave you with. And if you'd like to have a copy of what we're talking about here so that you can re-look at it and have it front of mind as you process your grief, I invite you to download that. It's at the bottom of this video. And if you are really experiencing this intense process, I would like to invite you to book a session with me. That is also available to you at the bottom of the video. It's a free complimentary session with me, and if that's going to be of value to you, that's my mission and my hope in life, is to sit with you and hold space with you as you process your grief, This is a privilege and an honour that I have with many people, and it would be a privilege and an honour if you would allow me to hold that space with you as you go through your grieving process. I look forward to seeing you in the next video where we'll cover the lessons learned from grief.